We're going to take a look at some conceptual questions surrounding all of these trig graphs and inverse trig properties. So the first one that I'm going to talk about is, why do we have an asymptote for cotangent and tangent, but we don't have an asymptote for cosine and sine? So to do this, let's take a look at the unit circle. You'll see here this circle that I did not draw by hand, unfortunately. I can't take credit for that. But if I drew a reference triangle in this unit circle, you've got your angle down here by the origin. You've got an x-coordinate and a y-coordinate. And on a unit circle, the radius is always 1. So you'll notice that if I do sine of theta, that's going to be opposite over hypotenuse, so that's y over 1, which is just y. And cosine theta is x over 1 adjacent over hypotenuse, which is just x. Finally, we have tangent theta is y over x, because that's opposite over adjacent. So if we're trying to figure out why tangent would have an asymptote, you have to think about why we draw asymptotes in the first place. On a graph, we always draw asymptotes where the function is undefined. And if you think back to last semester when we graphed rational functions, whenever the denominator equaled 0, that's where we had an asymptote, a vertical asymptote. If you look at the sine and cosine graphs, they don't have a denominator. It's just y and it's just x. So there's never going to be a place on the unit circle that's undefined for sine and cosine. And that's why we do not have asymptotes. But if you look at tangent, there is an x in the denominator for tangent. So we have to think about anywhere x equals 0 on the unit circle, it's going to be undefined for tangent. So I'm going to look at these four corners here. You've got 1, 0, you've got up at the top 0, 1, negative 1, 0, and 0, negative 1. So at pi over 2 and at 3 pi over 2, we have an asymptote for tangent because x is 0 for both of those, so it would be undefined. And you can make the same argument for cotangent. Cotangent of theta is going to be x over y. So anywhere there's a y equals 0 on the unit circle, you've got a 0 in the denominator, which makes it undefined, and therefore the graph needs an asymptote at that location.